10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, everybody. How is everyone? This is your favorite host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you on No Soundbites Allowed on the exceptional conservative network. That's right, the TECN TV. And I am happy to be here with you all. I hope everyone had a great Easter. It was a great day for a lot of people. At the same time, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the sadness of hearing about the 290 people that were attacked, the Christians that were attacked in Sri Lanka, and it devastating news to hear about such attacks, and sad to see the news media downplay this, talking about Easter. I think the term was Easter celebrators, or those who are celebrating Easter, is the way that much of the news media has portrayed it. And that's kind of insulting, and it's sad that they can't say Christians. I mean, Easter is a Christian holiday. It's not a Muslim holiday. It's not a Jewish holiday. It is a Christian holiday. And they would not say Ramadan celebrators. They would say Muslims. They wouldn't say Passover celebrators. They would say Jewish or Jews. Why wouldn't they say Christians? It's kind of sad to hear that. But at the same time, and the more important thing is, my heart goes out to them, to every single one of the individuals affected, their families, their friends, the 39 Americans that were affected, as I saw in many of the reporting. It's just a devastating thing. And there is no reason for fanatical extremism to affect individuals, innocent human beings that have nothing to do with anything, that they're just going around celebrating their faith, celebrating their family, their friends, walking around, individuals who had nothing to do with anything. It's sad, and we should denounce it, whether it's for Jews or Muslims or Christians. It doesn't, Buddhists, I don't care. Anyone, no one should be subjected to that kind of brutality and violence, and it should not be celebrated, and it should be denounced by everyone equally across the world, because it benefits no one. And I just wanted to get that out there, the very first thought, because it's something seriously in my mind and something I was thinking about over this weekend, because there's no place in it, in this world, for that kind of terror, for that kind of fanatical thinking. It benefits no one, and we should all denounce it equally, as I do here, and I am sure, and I know for a fact, the TECN TV network family all denounce this, and we should, and we do, vociferously. But let me take a break off of that and let me step back a little bit. I do want to mention that, again, this weekend, April 27th and April 28th, will be the Liberty Weekend. I will be speaking on the 28th of April at 2 p.m. at Binghamton University. This is an event being brought to you by the Binghamton University College Libertarians and the Binghamton University College Republicans jointly. There will be speakers there, including my good friend, Dr. Giovanni Scoringi. There will also be a friend of mine as well, Larry Sharp of the Libertarian Party. He ran for governor in 2018, and that'll be on the 27th. In fact, I expect to be doing an interview with Larry Sharp at 3:30 on the 27th. I hope to see everyone there, and I'll bring that to everyone live. And if you are in the Binghamton area, my good friends at the Belmar Pub and also at the Park Diner, please drop by and visit them. Belmar Pub is great for food and drink, and a great group of people. They're friends of mine. This is not a paid advertisement. I just like to promote them because they're my friends. And also at the Park Diner, my good friends there. Great food, great establishment. Please check them out if you are in the Binghamton area, especially this weekend at the Liberty Weekend. So I did want to mention that. So let's talk. First thing I want to talk about, now, I won't take a whole lot of time on this, but as many people may be aware, on Saturday, we were doing our live broadcast at noon, And it usually goes from noon until 2 p.m. And we were in the middle of the broadcast when suddenly we went dark. The system just cut out. And the reason for that, very simply, is your donations, your help, your support of this channel. As we mention often and many times, the only way we keep this going, and we've been doing this for 12 years now, is through your support, your donations, your help. We try to keep away from any advertising, and yes, I do mention friends from time to time, but they're not paid advertisers. We try to stay away from commercials. We want to give you a program that is as open and free and just information, taking your calls, taking your tweets, your texts, your information, getting you guests as often as possible, going to live events like the Liberty Weekend to speak with politicians and pundits like Larry Sharpe. We do this out of our own pocket, and it costs money every year, and I lose money every year. And sometimes, because it costs money, like on Saturday, we go dark because bills got to get paid. And it's difficult. So without your help, we're not able to do that. So please, whether it's $1, whether it's $2, $50, $500, whatever. If you enjoy the content, if you enjoy what we do here, bringing you guests like Dan Was, Jennifer Lawrence, Larry Sharpe, officials like Donald Lepardo or Fred Akshar on the local level, and many of those all around the nation. If you enjoy the content, please donate. It helps us keep the lights on and keeps us being able to present this product to you. So as I said, I didn't want to focus on that a whole lot, but I did want to explain why we went dark. It was unexpected, but that's why we went dark. And we're back. And I do want to send a shout out to my good friend, Scott Hopkins, who helped us get the lights back on. We still need more help, but he got us back on, and I want to give him a shout out. I do also thank Ed Hickey, Robert Murphy, John Solak, Michael Woodward. They've helped us over the years. Tina DeBella have helped us with their donations to help keep this going forward. And of course, everyone at the TECN TV network and their help in helping us keep providing you with all the sources and services that we do. And by the way, I'm not against having a commercial from time and time again, whether it's on a one-show basis or if it's for the whole program. We're not against it. Got to make a profit. Oh, well, hell, want to just pay the bills. But we're not against it. It's just something we try to keep at a minimum if we do get advertisers, when we do get advertisers. Okay, with that all said, let's move on to the actual program here. So we want to talk. There's been a lot going on, and since the weekend, I haven't been here, but something that keeps driving me crazy all the time.
My real objection is that I don't think political correctness works. I want to get to the Golden Hill, but I don't think that's the way to get there. I believe one of the greatest human failings is to prefer to be right than to be effective. And political correctness is always obsessed with how right it is without thinking of how effective it might be. I wouldn't class myself as...
Okay, and for those who are not familiar with that, that's the Monk debate that took place in Canada. Stephen Fry, a well-known member of the left, maybe even the far left, depending on how you define it, and even he himself would define the far left viewpoints that he has, talking about one of the key problems we see in politics, not just in Canada, but here in the United States as well. A very big push by the left, even the fringe left especially, to always be right, that they believe they are right. Our good friend Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez believes in being right rather than being factually correct, informationally correct, rather than having evidence and facts and truth. She wants the subjective moral truth, her feelings. And that's what we hear a lot throughout all of the left. We hear them talking about how they feel, how you should feel, that you should do things based on the way they feel you should vote. You should support their feelings, not the facts, not the evidence, just the feelings. And that's kind of troubling. It really terrifies me. It makes me very scared. Because when we hear things like that, that's when we start seeing certain things. And I'll give you an example. We saw this. This is an article from the New York Times. And it was, should a white man be the face of the Democratic Party in 2020? And they're talking about Bernie Sanders. They're talking about Beto O'Rourke. They're talking about Joe Biden, Eric Swalwell. These are problems because that's identity and gender politics. That's separating people by micro categories. Because Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Beto O'Rourke or Robert O'Rourke, he's a fake Hispanic, Eric Swalwell, they're no longer individuals. They're no longer men. Even Pete Buttigieg, they're not people, they're categories. Pete Buttigieg is a gay man running for president. Bernie Sanders is a millionaire old white man. Joe Biden is a creepy old white man. Beto O'Rourke is a fake Hispanic. He's running away from the fact that his name is Robert. He is a white man, pretending to be a Hispanic man to gain votes. This is troubling. And I mean this, I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. And I am worried for the Democratic Party when you see this kind of division, that they no longer are individuals. I don't agree with any of their policies or their politics, but I am troubled that they can only be seen as the color of their skin, the gender they are born with, the wealth or success that they've had in life, or their sexual preference. That's not right. If you were to make, what, should I be judged because I'm black, I'm Hispanic, because I'm a male, because of my age or my income? No. And if you heard anyone ever say, oh, you are simply black, or you're simply Hispanic, you're simply middle class or poor, would anyone accept that? We would be outraged. The media would be outraged. If someone went to Kamala Harris and said, oh, Kamala, you're just simply a black woman. That's it. You know, we're going to judge you just because you're black and a woman. And she's not black. She's a mixed race, but it doesn't matter. Then we would be outraged if someone said, well, just because you're a woman, like Kirsten Gillibrand or Elizabeth Warren, that's all you are. You're a woman. There would be outrage, massive outrage, and there should be, because it's belittling. It's defining a person not on the quality or merits of what they have done or not done, but simply because someone created a racial or gender profile and said, well, you checked off this box, and that's all you can ever be. You can never be more. You can never be better. You can never be grander. You can't do things simply because of your skin color, your race, your gender, your sexual preference, your religious preference. That's insulting. That's dangerous. It's worse than insulting. It's dangerous. And if we allow that to be the guiding light of our politics, we run a path that we've seen throughout the world. And that path is violent, it's dangerous, it's less free. It does not help anyone. It will never help anyone. And we've seen that over and over again throughout history. You want to talk about slavery? That is slavery. And slavery, no, it's not the chains of slavery as we think of classically when someone says, well, slavery, chains, black people. No, there are more forms, the worst form of slavery. It's a mental slavery. It defines people. It limits people. It destroys them. It's this kind of cultural and societal, and I don't mean institutional. I mean individually. Because I don't believe in this institutional, that's just a whole, I'm not going to go into the microaggressions. I don't believe in that stuff. What I'm talking about is the mental slavery on each and every individual, that you are limited by yourself and their promotion, that you can never be more because they feel like you can't be more and that you can never rise up and be better than what they have defined you as. How dare they? How dare they say something like that? And I think every time I talk to rank and file Democrats, regular people, I hear it all the time. I don't believe that. I don't accept that. That they would never want to be defined because they're a male or a female, because of their skin color, because of their religion or sexual preference. Those are horrible things to define a person by, because they have nothing to do with who the person is. You can be a good or bad person, and you can be any color, any religion, any sex, any sexual preference. And that has nothing to do with whether you're good or bad, or whether you're capable of something or not. And if we accept that because someone else either prefers or doesn't prefer today this or that aspect of you that is immutable. You are born what you are born. You are who you are by your choices and decisions throughout your life. And if we accept that someone else can define you and limit you based on their feelings about what you are, then that is a problem. I mean, think about it. When I grew up in the Bronx, during the days of crack and before, in the 70s, when racism was really rampant, not like today. No, racism was rampant in the 70s. We were just coming off the civil rights changes in the nation, and it was a rocky time. And there was rampant, widespread, well-accepted racism. And guess what? During that time, the answer was, and during the 80s, during the crack epidemic, during the 90s, the answer that was being said is, well, you're poor, you're from the Bronx, and you're going to always be poor and in the Bronx. And you can't do better than that. And I'm sorry, I've never accepted that. Not once in my life. I have traveled around the world. I've been on both coasts of the United States and some time in between. I've met the president twice. I've covered the president twice of President Trump. I've covered President Clinton once. I talked to congressmen and members of state and local government at the highest levels on a regular basis. I didn't get there because someone said, well, he's black, let's let him do that. No, it's not because I'm rich. It's not like my family's connected to politics. It's because I'm involved and because I want to be. It's because I made those choices in my life, and I've made sacrifices for that. Some of them good, some of them bad. But I made the effort. And because I made that effort, and because I didn't listen to people saying, well, all you can be is an entertainer. All you can be is a rapper. All you can be is a basketball or baseball star or football star. All you can be is a drug dealer. If I listened to those people, I would be dead today. Just like a quarter of the people that I grew up with. So many people who died because they gave up on being them and accepted that this image, this limiter, that someone else from somewhere else said, well, we don't feel like you can do better. And if you accept that, then that will be the definition of your life. And I disagree with it. And I think that's a troubling thing that we're running into in the 2020 presidential election. And it is terrifying to me to hear men, women, everyone go out there, especially Biden and Beto O'Rourke and all these individuals who are running, who are planning to run or are running for president on the Democratic side, that are apologizing for the way they were born. They're apologizing and hiding from the fact that they were white, that they're men, that they've had successes in their life. Why in the world would you ever apologize for that? Be proud of it. I don't care if you're white, black, Hispanic, you're a Muslim, you're a Jew, you're Christian. I don't care how rich or poor you are. Be proud of what you are. You can be gay, straight, queer. I don't care. It doesn't matter. That's your life. That's you. And the only thing that limits that ability is you. And when we listen to politicians and people with political preferences put people into micro category boxes and say, well, you're better than that person just because today it is politically advantageous to us, you should be terrified and be afraid and not support that. Because one day you won't be in the right category and you will be oppressed just like the ones you are trying to oppress otherwise. That is not how we got to where we are in 2019. And we should remember that. And we should emphasize that. And so these messages we're seeing in the 2020 elections really, really trouble me. And I think that they trouble most people in the Democratic Party that I speak to, the rank and file members, often, all the time. They tell me they're worried about these things, that they have a concern about these things. Even though some of them say, no, well, I accept, we should fight against racism. But that doesn't mean use racism. That doesn't mean that we support Antifa. We don't support radical terroristic tendencies. That doesn't make them better. Again, going back to Sri Lanka, just because someone says a Muslim group is oppressed doesn't mean they have a right to go out and kill 290 Christians who had nothing to do with it, who very likely weren't trying to oppress anyone and very likely had no idea. Maybe even trying to help those very same Muslims. We don't know. They're individuals. They should be treated as such. And no one should oppress them or try to kill them just because they don't feel like they agree with them. That is troubling, because when you feel someone else is unworthy, that they're not human, they're not equal, for whatever reason you want to put out there, for whatever category you want to define them by, when you say that you feel like they are unworthy and they are unequal, guess what? That's how you justify going out and bombing people who are just trying to live their lives. And none of us agree with that, but the consequence is a straight line. If you define people by the categories that you arbitrarily place upon them and limit them and put those limiters on your view of them, then you have nowhere else to go but to treat them as inhuman at some point to some degree. And that's how you get fanatics who go out and bomb people and kill people. And that truly is terrifying. But let me take a moment here. We're going to take a quick break and come back, and we're going to talk about some of the politics in New York, politics, what we're seeing in this nation 2020 race, gun control, and also the upcoming speech that I'm going to make. So we'll go over all of that in just a moment, but we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Sometimes a man is wrong. Oh, she took 5 steps. Oh, and she was caught. Oh, it's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times. She said, I know you ain't got a cheating heart. Oh, your love is true. You just gotta. She never gonna fall. Oh, it's gonna love this time. Oh, it's one of those times. took 5 sips. Oh, and when she was gone, oh, it's one of those times. Oh, it's one of those times. Thank you.
All right, folks, it's back to me. That's right, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you again on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast on the ever so happy, the exceptional conservative network TECN-TV, and I am happy to be back with you all. I hope again you're enjoying the program. So in the last episode, we were talking a lot about, well, Sri Lanka. We're talking about the impact of feelings versus individual freedoms and equating and respecting individuals based on their individuality. And there are a lot of aspects of that I want to get into, especially how that is affecting the 2020 Democratic race. But before I do that, I do want to mention that, again, on the 28th of April at 2 p.m., I will be speaking at Binghamton University here in New York, and I will be speaking at 2 p.m. This is a 2-day event for those who want to come down. It's open to the public. It's open to the media. And on the 27th, there will be speakers there, including Larry Sharp of the Libertarian Party, who ran for governor in 2018. I will also be having an interview with him at about 3:30 on Saturday, the 27th. Also, the Liberty Weekend is brought to you by the Binghamton University College Libertarians and the Binghamton University College Republicans. It's a joint event. There will be a lot of speakers there, and I hope you're going to come down. It's going to be great. If you are in the Binghamton area, please visit my friends at the Belmar Pub and also at the Park Diner. Great locations, good food. Belmar has some great drinks, great people. The Park Diner is a great place to have a meal. I enjoy it all the time. This is not paid advertising. These are my friends, and I enjoy their establishments, so I wanted to share that with you. But please do come on down on the 28th. I look forward to seeing you there. So in the last segment, as I said, I was talking about Sri Lanka. I was talking about how feelings and segregating people, and that's what it is, segregation. When you segregate people into micro categories, that you're just black, you're just a white man, you're just a black woman, you're just gay, and then subdividing everyone into even further categories. Well, you're black and gay, or you're white and transgender, or you're, Hispanic and Jewish, whatever the micro categories are, and you divide people and separate people into these smaller and smaller groups. This has a really big impact on what's going to happen throughout the nation. And I want to get into that a bit because that has a big impact. I mean, when we look at what's going on with the 2020 election, and we're looking at the presidential nominees on the Democratic side, let's look at who we're talking about here. We're talking about Bernie Sanders, who is defined by the fact that he's a white male, old, and rich. He's a millionaire. Not that he wants you to be a millionaire, not that he would support that. He wants to take away your money for his programs, but he's not giving up his money, his 3 houses, his $1 million that he earned through the capitalist system. He wrote a book that people bought, that was advertised, that made him rich. And he didn't give that to the public. He didn't give that voluntarily to the government. He kept that money. He bought 3 houses. He's living a very good life. But he's not offering that to everyone else. He's not giving an opening to that opportunity for others. What he wants to do is take away from everyone to give it out and redistribute it his way. Should we define him because he's white and old, or because his policy will not allow people to have the same freedom and opportunity that he did to become a millionaire? Look at Joe Biden, who's apologized for the fact that he was born a white male. Why? You know, you may have issues with Joe Biden and the way he's very close to people and has been for the entire time he's been in politics, and that he's a gaffe machine and says outrageous things on a regular basis. But should we be defining him by those actions, or should we be defining him because he's an old white man? Which is funny because you would think Republicans are called old white men, except that these are the two leading individuals in the Democratic presidential nomination. What about Pete Buttigieg? He's a gay man. And what else defines him? What else makes him worthwhile? He's married to a man. Okay. And he wants to have a child. Okay. What defines him? What makes him special? Why should he be president? Because he's gay? Who cares? That has nothing to do with how he deals with Iran, how he would deal with the debt, how he would create jobs, how he moves America forward. That's just his personal sexual preference. Who cares? Unless you want to date him, and sorry, he's already married, you can't. So it doesn't matter. Kamala Harris, who is defined by the fact that she's a black woman. Okay. And what else? She's not been successful in the Senate. She hasn't really passed anything of any merit. She hasn't done anything of merit. She's a black woman. And actually she's, I forget which race. I think she's Indian. But it doesn't matter. What else is important about her? What makes her important as a presidential candidate? Because she wants to give reparations? Because she wants to take away people's guns, which I'm going to get into in a second. Andrew Yang is someone who wants to give everyone, well, sort of wants to give people free money, except that money costs money. It's not free. He wants to take it from people and give it to certain people if they hit certain criteria. He's Asian. So what? He was independently wealthy because of the capitalist system, because of his ability to create a business. Does that make him better or worse than anyone else? How does he deal with international policy? How would he, besides paying people to be poor, because you can only qualify for his free money if you are in the right categories. That limits people. That's not a benefit. Elizabeth Warren is most noted for her fact that she said for years and benefited from denying the fact that she's white and saying that she was an American Indian, which we now know is not true unless you count 1,024th of being enough to be anything. And if that's the case, well, guess what? I happen to be a Samoan because I am sure that I have 1,024th Samoan in my body. Does that make me a Samoan? No, it does not. And I would never say that. But that's not what defines me. Should she be defined by the fact that she claims to be an American Indian? That she claims to deny her own race and her own abilities, her own life? And she wants to be defined by the color of her skin as she sees it? Come on. Didn't we go over this in the 1960s? Isn't this something that we've already dealt with and said that no one should be defined by the color of their skin? That no one should be defined by their gender, their race, their sexual preference? Haven't we had this discussion? Because I know in my 51 years on this planet, I've gone over that argument many, many times. For decades, we've been fighting that fight. And guess what? We are much further today than when I was in my teens and my preteens in the 70s and 80s. There is no comparison. But why are we letting these people take us backwards in time and say, no, we should resegregate, voluntarily segregate, which is even worse than involuntary segregation, in my opinion. We should resegregate. We should split people apart. And you're only as valuable as the category that you're in. This is what we're hearing from the Democratic Party. And I am terrified that that is what we think is worthwhile in America. Do I think Kamala Harris? I've said it before. I've made the prediction many times that it will be either Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, or Kirsten Gillibrand. Two of those three will be the candidates that Democrats put up against President Trump for the 2020 presidential election. That has not changed. And the reason is because they're women. And in the case of Kamala Harris, because she's a woman of color. And maybe you can claim that for Elizabeth Warren as well. Because they're women of color and because they're women, that means they should be president. I'm sorry. No, it doesn't. it doesn't even mean that they should be in the race. That is not a factor. That is not a quality. That is intrinsic. That has nothing to do with who they are, what they believe. But let's actually talk about what they do believe, because that's important. That's actually what is important. And what do we see? Elizabeth Warren is pandering to black people. She's pandering to try and get reparations. She's pandering to go out there and gain ground with a group of people who Democrats have historically, in my lifetime, said, well, you're black, so you must be a Democrat. You don't get a choice because you fit this box. Because you're black, you're a person of color, you must be a Democrat. Why? And I pose this question often. When people say, well, you're a black conservative, well, how can you be a black conservative? Why can't I? Why must I only be the identified and only be what someone else has attributed to me because of the color of my skin? Does that have anything to do with my knowledge, my experiences around the world, my time in the military? Does that have anything to do with what I believe is important for America in the future? And ask this of yourself. Does your color of the skin make you more or less intelligent, more or less capable? And if it doesn't, then why would you vote for someone who says that it must? That is the only option that you have available? Let me look at, and I want to get into the gun control thing a little bit, because Kamala Harris, and she's really upset me about this. Kamala Harris, as we see in the article, which is by CBS, states that Kamala Harris vows to take executive action on guns if elected as president. And her basis for this, her basis of being able to do this is because she believes that there aren't reasonable gun laws in the nation. For people who aren't aware, there are over 22,000 gun laws in America. Almost all of the gun laws and the strictest of gun laws exist in California and in Illinois, in particular in Chicago. It's also in Michigan with Detroit and in New York State. Does that change anything? Not really. But what we do see Kamala Harris say in her announcement, she came out with her views that if in the first 100 days that Congress does not pass what she considers reasonable gun laws on top of the 22,000 that we have already, including red flag laws that I will be speaking about this Sunday on the 28th, she goes on to say in her announcement that actions on gun violence in a Harris first 100 days, if she were to be elected president, she's going to be attacking gun owners. And she starts this conversation off with, and this I'm reading directly from it if you're listening to the audio. In 2017, nearly 40,000 people were killed by guns in America. Full stop. Let's stop right there. That's a lie. Because she's making an illusion. She's manipulating people on their emotions to try and convince you of something that isn't really true. 40,000 people did die by use of a gun. About 27,000 of them were because of suicides. That's not gun violence. That's not mass shootings. That's not school shootings. That's not the same thing. Okay? This isn't something that, and on top of which, let's also think of it this way. There are laws against suicide. There's laws against gun violence. But 40,000 people, those laws didn't change the fact that those people used those firearms to kill themselves or others. So 22,000 laws aren't stopping individuals from doing what she's proposing. So why would another law that says the same thing? Because it's already illegal to murder someone. It is already illegal to kill yourself. How many times do you need to say that same law, those same two things, over and over again? It's already illegal. People do it anyway because criminals and the mentally deranged don't care about laws because they are deranged and criminal. Whether that's a terrorist or just a mugger, it doesn't matter. But She's using emotion, and she's defining people and putting them into a category that if you are a gun owner, well, then you're in favor of gun violence, which is a lie. And she's manipulating you by misreading the facts. 40,000 people didn't die in mass shootings or gun violence. 27,000 killed themselves. Another 6,000 to 8,000 were involved with gang violence and drugs. And that's where that comes from. So just off the bat, going by the lowest numbers possible, you're talking about 33,000 out of 40,000 people died either because of gangs or because of suicide. So 40,000 people were not killed by gun violence. And that's why she says killed by guns in America. She's playing with you. She's playing with the way that you are reading this and trying to emotionally manipulate you. And that's sad that that is being done and allowed. And that's terrifying to me. Now, she goes on in her conversation here, and I'm trying to remember the line that she says. Her plan is about gun registrations and to go out there and universal background checks. Guess what? They already exist. There are already background checks that are going on as we speak. And it's not the problem of the backgrounds. We've seen this over and over again, where individuals who are in the database, who are not supposed to get firearms, get them because human error. Individuals don't check the database, or the database isn't updated, or that law enforcement don't enforce those laws. We have a problem with enforcement, not the law. The law is already there. It already works. Whether or not people enforce it is another thing altogether. And that may be a problem that we can address, but it's not because we don't have enough laws. That's not the problem. And guess what? The majority of true gun violence, we're talking about gangs, we're talking about mass shootings, we're talking about school shootings, are done with firearms that are illegal. So there's your problem. Enforcement, not the law. The laws already exist. And none of these laws stop people like in Islamberg. And I refer to this all the time, and I've done an article on it. In Islamberg, New York, the plot being done by 4 kids who are under the age of 20, who are former Boy Scouts, guess what? They were building bombs. That's point blank illegal. It has nothing to do with any law. You can have every background check you want. It doesn't stop crazy people from making bombs and trying to kill people. And we've seen that in many of the mass shootings that have happened or have been attempted, that they create bombs, which are straight out illegal, and no background check is ever going to stop that. But, Kamala Harris is on the same boat as Eric Swalwell. And you say to me, well, Mike, what do you mean? Eric Swalwell, who is a representative, not a senator, but a representative out of California, has also said that he wants to go and have more gun control bills. They think it's the gun that is the problem, when the root problem are the people who are doing these things. And in an article from Politico, which is from April 14th, Swalwell says the Second Amendment allows for gun control, which it doesn't. That, when we see the law and we see the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed, I don't know how you get gun control from that statement. Shall not be infringed. How do you get gun control from that? If the government does not have the right to infringe on your ability to own a firearm, how do you get gun control as allowed? You don't. The terms are mutually exclusive. They are opposed. Now, I understand we agree as a nation to have certain restrictions on there. Fine. We've given the government that right. That was our right that we have denied ourselves to live in a society. And remember, our government, our Constitution, gives all the power to the people, and only the rights that we give up belong to the government. The government can only do what we say we will let it do, because we have those rights. The government does not. Power does not come from the power doesn't come from the government. comes from the people. And government can only do what we allow it to do, no more and no less. But Mr. Swalwell believes that if people, and again, I go back to the Politico article, he says in there, and it's clearly, and it's understated in the article from April 14th in Politico, that under Swalwell's plan, people who don't agree to sell back their military-style weapons could face jail time. Now, I want to address that very clearly. What is a military-style weapon? That means that's a firearm that you saw in a movie where someone was using it. Someone who was probably paramilitary or military in a war film or an action film. That's a military-style firearm. It's a firearm that's designed with more metal than wood. That has nothing to do with the intrinsic ability of that firearm to fire. People who don't know anything about firearms look at a movie and they think, well, guns just fire forever and you never have to reload. That's stupid. That's not true. And I understand that is something that's been subtly embedded into our mindset that these are what firearms do. But no, a rifle is not an automatic firearm. It is not a machine gun. It is not. It never will be. But that is the impression that has been put out there. And if you remember when I spoke to R.W. Arms about the bump stocks, a bump stock doesn't make a firearm an automatic weapon. And I do advise, if you haven't seen that interview with R.W. Arms, please do. Because it's a very influential and important thing. But Eric Swalwell is saying that if you have a firearm he doesn't like, he doesn't have a good feeling about that firearm, then he will forcibly take it from you with the full power of the government behind him. He will put you in jail for owning something he doesn't like. That is, at the end of the day, that is what he is saying. That is the gender identity politics of the Democratic Party for 2020 at this time. If they don't like it, you don't get to have it, and they will use the full power of the government to take it from you. These are their words. This is what they mean. And we need to understand what is the implication of the politics that are being put out there for us. Because it doesn't mean I get to take away what's a military style. What does that mean? What does military style mean? Because that's not a function, that's a look. That's like saying that, what is it? Stop and frisk, I've heard people talk about. Just because you're dressed a certain way doesn't mean you are that. So if you dress like a thug, doesn't mean that you're a drug dealer. And therefore, stop and frisk and any kind of profiling is wrong. And we've heard Democrats say that over and over again. Well, please, if you're telling me that just because it looks like something doesn't mean it is something, then why is a military style, a firearm that looks like something in a movie suddenly bad? Because that's what they're saying. That is what they are saying when they say this. And we should understand it for what it is, not what they then soften and say, well, no, you misunderstand. No, that's the words you used. That is the meaning of the words that you have used. This is what the consequence of those words mean. And you can try and say, well, emotionally, I don't care how you feel. The law is not about feelings. It is about what is said and what it means, not how you feel about what it means. So that's something that's very terrifying. We should really be looking at that. And the implications of that are far, far reaching, because it's not just the Second Amendment. It's not just their views on this one idea. We're talking about segregation, legal, and very often a self-voluntary segregation. That's terrifying. Now, I did want to also get into, and I know I'm running out of time, I've got 5 minutes here. So I do want to mention that the Supreme Court, it's again, something funny about the way that we hear the media talk about things. Today, April 23rd at 11:34, we saw Bloomberg announce that the Supreme Court signals support for Trump's census citizenship question. Now, I don't see a problem with only taking the citizens and counting them, because illegal aliens are criminals and are not supposed to be in this nation. That is why they are illegal. They are not undocumented, which you will see very often cited, and they're called undocumented migrants. They're not migrants. They're immigrants. They're immigrating. They're trying to enter the nation illegally. That means they are illegal aliens of this nation. Point blank. There is a legal term. That is the legal term. Illegal alien. If you hear someone say undocumented migrant or undocumented worker, they're lying to you. They're trying to change your emotional state so you don't realize this person broke the law. And they are punished by law because they are willfully resisting the law that exists. But in this Bloomberg article, they're talking about how we've heard right now the Supreme Court is listening to whether or not we should ask only United States citizens whether or not they should be involved in the census, which I think makes sense because we're counting citizens. We're not counting illegal aliens, people who don't belong in the nation and shouldn't be in the nation. They don't count towards anything because they shouldn't benefit. They should not be able to benefit from breaking our laws. But because 2 of the 9 justices asked questions, well, then that means they must be aligned with President Trump. That's a scary way to look at the way our politics work in this nation. And we should be aware of that. And the manipulation that's going on in the news media, the major news media, in restating certain things like undocumented migrants or undocumented workers when the actual legal term is illegal alien. And that they are saying that they should count in our nation's count of our citizenship, of our citizens. They're not the same thing. And one leads to a benefit for breaking our laws as opposed to actually trying to help our citizens. But that's, we see that a lot. I mean, look at what we see, what's going on in New York State. We have Senator Jose Serrano, who is now out there, and he's trying to promote, there it is, and the New York Post wrote about this on the 21st of April. Under the article, Bronx lawmaker Jose Serrano make New York a sanctuary state. I am amazed by this article that State Senator Jose Serrano is going to suggest that New York State should violate the law. And that's what a sanctuary city is for immigration. They're breaking the law. And he says, let's do that. And not just 7 days ago, Bloomberg, Mayor de Blasio, and Nancy Pelosi have come out and said, no, guess what? We don't want the illegal aliens. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, we will fight against that. How can you turn around a week ago, the very people who said, hey, let's make sanctuary states, let's give a reward to illegal aliens, and turn around and said, no, but we don't want them in our state? Something is wrong. Okay, well, we've got about less than a minute here left, and I wish I had more time. There's so much more I wanted to get into. But let me say this. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, 1 p.m., Saturdays, 12 to noon, on the Exceptional Conservative Network. That's the TECN TV. This is No Soundbites Allowed with your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. Please remember to keep our lights on. It is vital. Your donations make the difference. I do also want to see you. It's free. It's the Liberty Weekend at Binghamton University, brought to you by the Binghamton University College Libertarians, the Binghamton University College Republicans. I will be speaking April 28th at 2 p.m. Please come on down and join us there. I will also be speaking to Larry Sharp on the 27th. And until then, I want to thank you. I'm happy that you were here with us, and I hope that you're going to have a great day. Please look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.